I'd now like to welcome Sue Cartwright from Communication Tree, a self-employed professional working in the PR and communications and human resources field, and she will share her insights on career building and work-life balance in the gig economy. Sue's a strategic communication and brand management specialist with over 25 years' experience in media and public relations. After completing a journalism degree at the University of Queensland, Sue has worked as a journalist in public relations for Wyndham City Council and in various senior communication roles with the State Government of Victoria. Always up for a new challenge, Sue established her own PR agency, Communication Tree, in mid-2013. Since then, she's relished the chance to draw on her experience and knowledge to help businesses and organisations develop their communication capabilities to give them a creative and unique voice in a very busy world. Please welcome Sue. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. And yes, on behalf of Carly, I'd like to apologise that she couldn't make it, but it's because she had family issues and she had to make the choice whether to come here or look after her kids. And I think that's what my discussion is going to be about mostly, is that being a worker in a gig economy means you've got to make a lot of choices, a lot more choices than you do if you're working for an employer. As the introduction said, I actually 4 years ago finished up in full-time or part-time employment and moved to set up my own business. And in doing so, became a gig worker, working both through my business but also taking on contract work as required. It's very rewarding being a gig worker, but it's not for the faint-hearted. I actually considered calling my presentation, just make sure there's a glass of red wine for me at the end of the day. There's a lot of pros and cons, and I want to this morning take you through a few of those, because I think we need to understand that our parent working self-employed or as a contractor, like any other parent, needs to develop work-life balance, but there are some significant differences between when you're employed by someone and you're employed by yourself. And I'd like to take those through. Personally, my situation is I have 2 school-age children, and that in itself, as anyone who has children knows, that there's a lot of challenges there, and those challenges are even greater when you're balancing clients' demands with your children's demands. One thing though I'd like to say is I don't want to be called a mumpreneur because I run a business, but I also am a mother with a family. And I think that's the thing, is that I'm not saying that I'm doing this because I want to be an entrepreneur or anything like that. I'm doing this because I want to give my children a really good life and be there for them when necessary. When you're self-employed, there's the challenge that, unlike when you are employed, you get that phone call from the school, and Carly and myself were going to go through this in detail because both of us, having had boys, there's that phone call, let you know, your son has just been kicked in the face in the schoolyard. Do you want to come and pick him up from school? Now, at that moment, you've got to decide, well, I've got to do that. You give them that response. You've got to be there for them. But it means that if you're working on contract, you give up that time, you give up that income, or you've got to ring up a client and say, look, sorry, I can't do that interview now or do that job for you now because I've got the family. There's no one else you've got to call on to say, can you fill in the gaps for me, or could you be there and look after that? So there's no such thing as carers leave, there's no such thing as sick leave, there's no such thing as long service leave, there's no such thing as holiday leave. You have to balance it out. You have to be prepared for your income to take all of that into account. So that's one of the things you need to prepare for. And with school-age children as well, there's a lot of other demands on you, including curriculum days, sports activities, parent-teacher interviews, the school holidays. School holidays are always an interesting time. My husband and myself sit down to work out, well, who's going to take what time off when to look after the kids. Because once you get to school age children, there are actually less opportunities for having formal childcare arrangements, and you really need to look to other mechanisms for making sure that your children are looked after and entertained and kept an eye on, unlike when they're toddlers and you've got a lot more childcare opportunities. I busily wrote down some notes because of the change in the situation with Carly. So you really, as I said, it's about choices and quite often weighing up the choice between your responsibilities to your clients and the responsibilities to your family. And it's a daily thing that you've got to do. The other thing that I find that you need to do is, and it was picked up before, is you have to be really good at self-promotion. Because you're working for yourself, you've got to have good networks, you've got to be out there, be prepared to really put yourself out there, not be a shrinking violet, because there's no one else there to let the world know that you're here, you're ready to help out. You've got to do it yourself. I mean, I set myself up as a business, which enabled me to be able to set up a website, set up social media, so it gets the message out there. And Carly does that as well through her business Strawberry Seed. We also, though, make sure that both our businesses are very closely related to us as a person, because we know that while we are getting employed through our business, our clients are actually employing us, and so they need to have confidence in us personally and know about us personally. So networking and that promotion is essential. One of the wider issues, though, that I've recently come across is quite often when you've got to apply for through Centrelink or state, federal government benefits, childcare benefits, family tax benefits, or even when applying to banks, they still ask you, what's going to be your annual income this year? And when you're working as a contractor on short-term contracts or working through self-employment, you really don't know that. It ends up being an estimate, and what you do tend to do is either, depending on the situation, overestimate or underestimate what your income is going to be, so that you don't kind of end up in a mess at the end of the financial year. And I think there needs to be some thought given at that wide level if we are more and more of us moving into that gig economy where we don't know, we don't have a set income, that some of the bigger institutions and the governments need to also consider, well, are there better ways of addressing those income estimates or asset estimates as well? I think that's an important thing to consider as we go further forward on this. Now, I've gone through a lot of what the hard part of it is and the challenges, but that doesn't mean that it's not rewarding. And there are actually quite a few pros for it as well. And I think the biggest one is the flexibility. It does mean that I can be there for a school assembly, like this Monday just gone. My 8-year-old pleaded with me, "Mum, please, we're doing a presentation at school assembly, can you come along?" 9 o'clock on a Monday morning. You try and persuade most employers that you're not going to come to work at 9 o'clock on Monday morning because you've got to go to a school assembly. At least I have the flexibility that I can be there for my children to be able to do that, and have them feel that mum is also there for them. Plus, there's all the other school performances, parent-teacher interviews and all that. You've got that flexibility that means you can be seen to still be there for your kids. Another really good thing I found is that I get to meet so many different people, and my clients come from so many different sectors and fields, whether it's hospitality, business services, technology. You do tend to find that you have this opportunity to learn a lot more, to build your network a lot more, and be part of a lot more things that are happening in your community, and building your awareness of a lot more that's happening out there. I find that that's really, really good when you're working, in my situation, as a business-to-business consultant. The other thing that I've found, which I would never be allowed to do if I was working for somebody else or working in an agency, you can pick and choose who you want to work for. I have had times where I've been offered work and I've actually turned it down because I've either not felt quite sure about the person, or the organisation involved hasn't really aligned with my own social values, and so that makes you feel that you're more empowered in what you get to choose to do with your work. So overall, I would say I'm pretty happy working in the gig economy. I think I'm a lot happier and have a better frame of mind than I did when I was working for somebody else. But I've never worked so hard as I have in the last 4 years. And so much of the reward is not necessarily income reward, but personal reward. And I think that's what you've got to consider if you're looking at going into the gig economy. It's a hard slog, it takes a lot of effort, and don't expect everything to fall at your feet to start with. You've really got to stick at it. You've got to be, as someone said before, very organised, and know where you want to go and how you want to get there. So I don't know if anyone would like to ask any questions at all.
I will say the questions for the end.
Okay, that's okay. I missed the start.
That's okay.
so.